Hello, I'm Kurt, and welcome to another FishDuck one-on-one video podcast. This week, we're talking with Coach Brian Flinn of Villanova University. He's entering his 8th season as the wide receivers coach and recruiting coordinator at Villanova University. Coach Flinn participated in our Coaches Corner on FishDuck, where we have coaches provide guest articles giving their tremendous insight on the game. You may have seen his work previously. He played at Mount Union College, winning the Division III National Championship twice, and he's coached at Mount Union, Drake, Maryland, and now Villanova. So thank you so much, Coach, for not only the articles you've provided for FishDuck, but now taking some time out to talk a little football with us.
Oh, happy to be here, man. Again, I appreciate everything you guys have done, and just enjoy the opportunity to talk a little football with you guys.
Terrific. Well, taking a quick peek at the calendar, it's looking like this is just about the last chance you get to relax and breathe. You're, what, about a week away from the start of fall camp?
Yeah, this is it. Today was the last day. We're in the office tomorrow, and then our players come in on Friday, and the first practice is next Saturday. So we're rolling, ready to go.
So what's the typical schedule like for a football coach once football season starts up?
It's kind of broken up into segments of the year. Like camp starts when we 2-a-day practices, and you're in there every day, and then kind of once you get into game mode, the schedule is it depends on if you're playing home and away, but you're essentially you have a game on Saturday. Sunday you come in the office and review the film and correct the mistakes and do all that stuff, and then Monday you game plan, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday you practice, and the next thing you know, Friday, Saturday the games. So it's very, very routine, but it's a routine by time of year.
So we'll get into a few things here more about the game of football in general and what you do. But first, with the season only being about a month away, I know it was a bit of a tough year, like you said. Your Cats went 2-9 last year in the CAA. But how are the Villanova Wildcats prospects looking for the 2012 season?
We should be. I mean, we're pretty optimistic. We've got 20 starters back, which you couldn't have many more. I mean, you could have 2 more back. You could have 22. We lost one of our better players, a guy by the name of Norman White, was an all-conference receiver for us. Missed all last year with the dreaded Liz Frank foot sprain, which you hear. It's never hear that on the injury report. Like, oh, it's the end of the universe. But he's back and healthy, so we should be a lot better. We're in the toughest league, the FCS level or the 1AA level. So it's just because we're a little bit better doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be a playoff team or win the conference, But we're excited. We got a lot of good players back that are good people.
Most people probably think of Villanova as a basketball school first because of all the success that's happened in previous years. But
for sure.
For most people, what we know about schools usually consists of the individual athletes who made it to the pros, and they kind of become torchbearers for the program. Certainly any NFL football fan with half a mind remembers Brian Finneran and Brian Westbrook, both right. Villanova alums. But beyond those two, what should the layman know about Villanova University and specifically the football program?
Well, I mean, the NFL guys, Howie Long is kind of one of the more popular ones that almost everybody knows. The thing about Villanova football, our head coach Andy Talley's been here since 1984. Wow. So we dropped football in the early 80s, had a couple years without football, and then brought it back at the 1AA level. It's FCS Football Championship Subdivision now, but Coach T is one of the few guys in our profession had a chance to build the program. So he came here from ground zero, day one, built it up. We won the national championship in 2009. In the previous decade, we won more games in our conference than any other team. So it's a basketball school, and we embrace that. Coach Wright does a great job. He actually spoke to our team before a playoff game a couple years ago, so we've got a great relationship with them. It's a culture around here, whether it's track and field, whether it's basketball, whether it's football. It's a championship culture. So that's been a great thing on top of the education that you get from Villanova and, being an Ivy League caliber school.
So you are the wide receivers coach, and you're also the recruiting coordinator at Villanova University. As a position coach, as opposed to the head coach or a coordinator, do you spend more time teaching fundamentals, or are you as involved in the overall game planning process and big picture outlook as the head coach and coordinators?
You know what? This is another great reason. Another great thing about working here is that you're involved. Sam Benuto, our offensive coordinator, he's been here since 1996. He's been the coordinator since '99. So I've worked with him for 8 years. He does a great job, soliciting our opinions, making us feel involved. I think one of our moves from the West Coast to the spread, Sam did a great job. He's a guy who had unbelievable success in the West Coast offense. I mean, he coached the guys that we're the best player in our league, best player at our level of football, and we're still willing to adapt and change. So we do have a lot of input. I do spend the majority of my time, trying to clean my own house, worrying about my guys, make sure they're playing the game the right way, and going to class and doing those things. But Sam does a great job in our staff room where everybody has input. And I think anybody that, one thing that Sam has taught me is anybody that does that job as a coordinator really needs everybody else in the room at their best. I don't think anybody just sits in a corner by themselves and comes up with these magic plays that are going to work. I think, all our input and different points of view really help. So it's a great situation. Coach Talley's a great head coach.
That seems like a really good comparison between the University of Oregon and Villanova, in that there's been a lot of stability, and that when you look back on the history and the success of Oregon, the way that it's grown through baby steps, it was because there was such stability in the coaching staff. We've only had 3 different head coaches since 1977.
Wow.
So people come there and they stay there, and it sounds like that's pretty similar to Villanova. In fact, Oregon is the only school in the entire FBS or BCS level that has not had a single coaching change in the last now 4 seasons. So for such a nomadic career that football coaching is, how much of a help is that in you being able to do your job when you're surrounded by the same people year after year?
Oh, it's a huge help. Like I said, Sam has been there since '96. Our line coach has been here since '87 or '8. Mm-hmm. So I've been with these guys for 8 years. So you're all speaking the same language. There's not, when we come down at halftime from a game, I give them the 3 or 4 ideas I have. The O-line coach gives them the ideas, but we all kind of have already seen it. Those adjustments are made during the course of a drive or series, or if we put a team on and it's a man coverage team, or if it's a no deep pressure, over low pressure team, we all kind of have the same answers because we know how we want to beat it. So it's very, very helpful. I think we've done a really good job to preventing being stale because we're around each other so much by going visiting other places in the spring and studying, offenses that we like, putting them in our computer and breaking them down. So, but it's a huge help. We've got a pretty good idea the strengths and weaknesses of our players, and that's really what our offense ends up being.
Well, in addition to being the wide receivers coach, you are also the official recruiting coordinator for Villanova University. From the perspective of an actual recruiting coordinator at a school, how wrong are we to spend our days counting star ratings and obsessing over highlights of kids we've never met before? Do you care about scout ratings and camp results, or is all of that just something for fans to follow?
I think it's all part of the data gathering process, I guess. If you would look historically, some of our better players, we had no lineman drafted in the second round in 2010 who his only offer was from our place, had no stars, and then he just ended up developing into a great player. A guy by the name of Matt Caesar, who was the MVP of the championship game when we won it, is now playing AA baseball for the Cubs. His only football offer was from us. So for us, the guys that are most successful here are the guys that want to be here. That really Villanova is important to them, and they're excited about being here, and this is the place they want to be. But that being said, I think we do monitor all that stuff. Coaching the receivers, the 40-yard dash time is one thing that people are obsessed with. You have to run a 4.50 or lower,
right.
Or you're not fast. The flip side of that is, I think there's a lot that we get working guys out at camps or watching them play that, maybe they're not a 4.6 guy or a 4.5 guy now, but they can be and they will be. And if we go through the proper steps of player development, we can help get them there. So I think all that stuff is great. I think it's gone a little bit overboard. That's
just a touch.
Right, but that's coming from a coach, which we've done it. We do a lot of that too. We take it to the extreme, and I think that it's nice to have access to information and to be able to evaluate guys. And it's anybody that's enough of a fan to me of your program that's excited about who you're recruiting and following it, then you need as many of those people as you can have. I think does that mean a 5-star player is going to end up being better than a 1-star player? No, because we don't know. As much of us, we've all been around it. Who knows how guys are going to turn out sometimes.
The old saying is recruiting is really the lifeblood of a program. And with so much coverage of it these days online and on TV, ESPNU now devotes like 8-9 hours on signing day to covering recruiting. How has your job as a recruiting coordinator changed over time?
I think you try to do your best to be ahead and to find the best ideas, the best times to have camps, the best way to do your camp brochure, the best way to utilize all the new technology, Twitter and Facebook and Skype and everything that you can use. I think is fighting hard to be ahead of the curve as best you can. Is what has changed. We still have our organizational things where, recruiting weekends are set up and unofficial visits and coming to games. I think a lot of that has stayed the same in terms of how we go about our business, but just utilizing all the resources and making sure that we're getting the message across and we're doing it in a way that shows Villanova in a positive light, but also follows the rules. There's a lot of technology nowadays. You can get a hold of a guy a certain way, but not another way. So I think that's, and the process just in general has accelerated. Recruiting coordinator, you don't do it by yourself. A lot of the decisions that I quote unquote make, we sit around a staff table and go, what do you guys think? What's the best way to do this? Is this worth doing? Is this not worth doing? Because it's, if you look at a lot of places have an assistant recruiting coordinator and really everybody's involved. I'm just kind of the guy that makes sure that everything's there on time. There's food for people to eat. There's everything. We're putting our best foot forward, but it really is a whole staff endeavor to get it going.
Right. It's a position that I think is kind of an unknown. Actually, just a couple years ago, University of Oregon's recruiting coordinator, linebackers coach Don Pelham, he was named the National Recruiting Coordinator of the Year, and all the fans rejoiced like, "Hey, that's awesome!" But wait a second, what does that actually mean? Like, what does a recruiting coordinator actually do?
Right. What I tell the younger guys that help me on our staff is, we do all the things that if they wouldn't get done, it would be noticed instantly, but when we do get them done in the course of a recruiting weekend or unofficial visit, it's just kind of everything rolls smoothly by and there's no issues. So our goal is, as a recruiting coordinator, is to go as well for everybody, the recruits, the parents, the coaching staff. And even now the job description is make everything go smoothly. How do I do that? With the help of everybody that works at our place, for the most part.
So practice is really broken down. It's almost like an art, using every second that's available to you, because it is very regulated how many practices you have in fall camp, when you can have pads on, pads off, etc. So how much time in practice is actually spent working on just basic fundamentals versus actually game planning and working in new plays and aspects of the playbook for the upcoming season?
Yeah, I think the majority of the beginning of practice this time of year, the first, for us, 15 to 20 minutes, you'll be with your individual group. Then we'll install, we'll spend probably the first 3 or 4 days installing our whole offense. But our whole offense it's simple enough that it can be installed from the beginning to end in that time. I think we're putting in the plays that we're going to run. We open up with Temple, so we probably won't start doing Temple game planning stuff until we get a couple weeks out, because it's, we're still trying to figure out what we do well. That's what our offense is going to be. What plays do we run well? I think, technique and fundamentals is going to be stressed during camp like it always is. You're going to install your offense, and you're going to decide, okay, which one of these plays are we going to feature in the first game and the second game. In terms of game plan, I think that, our whole offense is a menu that we draw on, but we don't come up with a whole bunch of new plays every week. Some we won't run because they won't be good, and then we'll bring them back next week because that defense is something that they'd be good against, but there's not a ton of new stuff.
One of the articles that you wrote for us on FishDuck.com, you explained how the offense has really, evolved in recent years to great success. Villanova won the national championship a couple years ago. You've been a student of Chip Kelly, as you said, in the Oregon offense for some time now. So what aspects of Oregon do you find applicable to the Wildcats' attack?
Yeah, I think that the biggest similarity between the two is, we spread you out, but we spread you out to run the ball. And not saying we can't pass and don't want to pass and won't pass. I don't think that's the case at all. We want to pass when we want to throw the football. But the goal of what we're doing is to get the ball handed off. And I think that's something that has been a change in the shotgun offense probably in the past, 5-10 years. And Oregon's done as good a job as anybody. I mean, we saw when Chip was at New Hampshire, it was very, very similar. He had a quarterback who was an unbelievable player. They did a good job running the football, but not nearly as good as they're doing now, because that quarterback was such a good player. The strength of that offense was he had a receiver who had more touchdowns than anybody in the history of college football, and a great quarterback. So they threw the ball a little bit more. But I think it's, philosophically, I think we have some pretty similar goals. what we're trying to get out of a game, and I think we're trying to do some more play action pass stuff and be better at running the ball. And so I think that's why we study them so much. We put them in the computer and break them down. Again, having Tony Trisci on our staff, who worked for Chip, and it's been a big help to us. It really has.
It's kind of funny, with FishDuck, our whole goal was to help educate fans. We had no preconceptions that we would ever be assisting coaches, and we hear from coaches such as yourself saying that you use our videos, and we're flattered by that, but we have to respond and say, we're not coaches, we're just fans. But what we have to deal with sometimes is fans think that we are giving away all of Oregon's secrets. Like, somehow Lane Kiffin is going to watch a FishDuck video and build his entire game plan based off of that, and that the Ducks are going to lose because we made a couple videos. Coaches already know exactly what teams are doing. You have footage cut-ups. You've built the game plans. We're not providing blueprints to USC or Washington on how to beat the Ducks, are we?
No. I think when we have an opponent, we trade every game that we play with them. So they have every game we've played. We have every game they've played, and then we put it in the computer and break it down any number of ways. I think what you guys have hit on and why it reached a core with me when I first saw the website is, coaches I'm around, we've always been enthralled with that high end zone camera that's strung up and moves around. And when I'm watching a game, I'm like, man, I could watch that whole game from this game. Give me an occasional all 22 shot if there's a pass, but I could watch every other play from that angle. Mm-hmm. And what you and what Charles did is it was something that everybody talked about. Oh man, I'd love to cut a game up, and I've done it from time to time from the TV games, but not in the detail that you guys did it. Whether or not you're a coach, if you study the game, you can learn what the schemes are, and then now you're talking about pin and pull, or receivers reading force and blocking, or the center double teaming up to the Mike linebacker. I mean, it's not, it's checkers, it's not chess. That's my college coach said that to me all the time. But you guys have done such a good job breaking this stuff down that it's the man hours on your end has made it easy for me when I'll pull the video up and go, oh man, that's how they're blocking it. Where I may have missed it when I watched it on Saturday night, trying to rewind my DVD or whatever. So. I think that's where it struck a chord with us. It's something that everybody's been interested in, and you guys have done the legwork. You've broken the film down and put the arrows in and all that, and we just sit there in 3 minutes and steal all your hard work. But
if there was a FishDuck equivalent website for, say, Old Dominion, I don't know, fishmonarch.com or fishspider.com, you wouldn't be using that to build your entire game plan, would you?
No, there'd be no game plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I wouldn't. We wouldn't do that. It wouldn't work.
Villanova plays in the CAA, the Colonial Athletic Association of the FCS, where they've had a playoff structure for years now, and it's worked pretty well. In fact, as we mentioned, Villanova won the national championship through a playoff. As somebody who's coached in college playoffs, what are your thoughts on the BCS conferences finally giving in and changing to a form of a play? It's essentially a +1, but a form of a playoff, at least for all the naysayers who have said, oh, it's too much to put on a college team to play that many games, with your kids going through it. Did you ever just say, like, come on, guys, really? We have fewer scholarships and we're doing just fine doing a playoff.
No, that's kind of my take on it. I've been through bowl practice as a GA at Maryland. That's a pretty long, drawn-out process during finals. So they have that already. Some guys get off for finals, but there's already that issue. We've played 15. We played in a 3-year stretch, 13 games, 15 games, and then 14 games. And it can be done. We played them on campus sites on the road. I mean, we had a string there. We played at Stephen F. Austin in Texas. The next week we played at Appalachian State in North Carolina. The next week we played at Eastern Washington. In the eastern part of Washington, so we traveled.
That's a tough trip.
All throughout the country, yeah, and we played like it when we got on the red turf up there. It can be done. It should be done. I think it will be done. Once you get to 4, you're going to get to 8, and once you get to 8, you're probably going to get to 16. Now, that moves at glacier type speed. When they make these adjustments, but. Playoffs, I mean, you find out who's better than who. There's no speculation. You line up against them, you play against them, and the better team wins the game. So I think that's what everybody wants to see. And all the arguments against it aren't all that strong.
Normally, I give the Oregon O, but I don't know, is there like a Villanova V or a Star Trek? Or
yeah, we throw the V up. Yeah, definitely.
The V up? Okay. Well, then go Villanova Wildcats, and Coach Brian Flinn, best of luck on the season. We look forward to hopefully more insight from you on FishDuck.com.
I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I know for sure I'll get more from you guys. Keep up the great work, and we'll keep pirated out here on the East Coast.
Awesome. Well, go Ducks, go Cats.